Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Dan O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. And today I am joined by John Barney. He is an owner and vice president at TriStar Commercials. We're very excited to be sitting down, chatting about his business and learning a little bit about the journey into business and entrepreneurship and all the fun stuff that comes along with that there. So, John, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day to sit down with me today and joining me for a bit of conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking me to be on.
Of course. Well, why don't we just kick it off? I'm going to hand it over to you. Share a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit about TriStar Commercial.
My background, I've been doing security for 24 years now, 25 years now. Me and my wife decided to start a company 20 years ago. So we started TriStar Commercial in 2003. And it's been a fun ride ever since. Anything that could have happened probably has happened. And we've learned a lot about business and about, I guess, just basically, keeping our clients happy, keeping our employees happy, how to continue the journey forward, so.
I love that. So it started in 2003. Clearly, I mean, first off, let's just pause for a second and say congratulations for still being in business this many years later. I mean, that the percentage of businesses that make it even to 5 years is way lower than it should be. So congratulations on being this far into business.
Thank you.
How, just out of curiosity, how big is the business today? How many team members do you have?
So we are running at 11 team members, and one of those is one of our new guys that we just hired, Scott. He came on for business development because I hate the term sales. Salesperson always has a derogatory term, makes people run for the hills. So we've always used the term business development, and I always tell them no high pressure sales. Walk away from a job before you get to the high pressure. Move on. There's plenty of clients for everyone, right?
Mm, I love that. So let's take a step back and you would give us like the 1,000 foot view of kind of what y'all do with your clients. So for those that have never heard of you before, give us kind of just the 1,000 foot view of what you do and who you look for, or what's a better way to ask this question? If I'm sitting in the audience watching the video, how do I know that I'm a perfect fit to come work with your company?
Oh, we're talking employees or customers? Or
Customers.
customers. Okay, yeah, absolutely. It's all about the customer, right? Um, so 1,000 foot view of TriStar is basically we harness technology and integrate the technology in a way that best fits each client. So we have different product lines. We don't specialize in one product line. We specialize in multiple product lines to try to find the best fit for the client, the technology that they're needing to protect their property, to protect their business, their employees, their spaces, whatever that might be, and residential, commercial, even industrial space and government complexes. So we integrate the technology to make it fit for them the best way that may be. And I'm sorry, what was the second question?
Just as a uh, as someone watching the video, how do I know I'm a really good fit to give you all a call and see what you can do for my business?
So if you're in the audience and you're thinking, okay, well, am I a fit for TriStar? You are a fit for TriStar if you need security, because we have done one door access control installs. We've done one camera installs for clients. We have done Littleberg installs. I have one of my notable clients that I had was, she was a lady that was deaf living in an apartment, and it was a $200 install for this client, but it meant the world to her because she was concerned about the neighborhood she was living in and where she was living and everything. And we provided a solution with flashing lights, and we vibrated her bed so that at night, if the alarm went off, she could feel the vibration through the bed and hopefully it'd wake her up. And she was ecstatic about that because of that. But that is the smallest install I will say that I did. And largest install, I would probably say, is somewhere in the 150 door access control size. And we've consulted on much larger projects, and I've done pieces of much larger projects. So it's really anybody that's looking for any kind of security for their business or property, so on and so forth. It's doesn't matter on size. So
Awesome. Very cool. That is, I love provide that you provided a little bit of an example there. I think that really will help resonate with the audience. So I appreciate that.
absolutely.
I want to take a step back. So we talked a little bit about the business. I want to talk a little bit about the journey into getting into business for yourself. If I heard you correctly, it was back in 2003. You and your wife started the business together.
We did. We had a third partner at the time.
Okay.
They had ended up asking for a buyout early on, and we took the buyout to let them move on with their life and how they saw fit. But the beginning stages and why we chose to do it, I was working in the security industry, and I was working for people I didn't respect. We had some problems. We had some falling outs, and I was like, well, what am I going to do next? And my wife looked at me, Heather. She looked at me and said, well, we kind of always talked about you starting your own business. And by the way, 2003 is the year that me and her got married. So we got married and started the business all at the same time.
Big
Um,
year. I love that.
yeah, so we did everything we could because there's money that's involved in starting a business. We didn't have any money, and so we did everything that we could, from mowing yards and moving trash and cleaning up people's properties to just make a few dollars to to get the business done and get the money that we needed for to create everything that we had to get put together for the security company.
That's fantastic. So I know it's been 20 years, but when you reflect back on that decision, on that moment where you're like, you know what, we are going to take the leap. We're going to move into starting our own business. Um, can you recall kind of what did that feel like? What did that look like? Was there a bit of fear? Was it excitement? Was it a little bit of both? Was there other emotions? Kind of tell me a little bit about that transition and making
Everything
that
you
jump.
can think of all at once. I mean, because you're ecstatic about, oh, I'm going to start this business and I'm gonna rule the world. But at one point you're like, how am I going to pay my bills? What if the business don't come? What if the customers don't come? What if, and all of that weighs on your mind. But sometimes I tell people sometimes you just have to grab the bull by the horns, and just run with it, figure it out, and there was a lot of figuring out when we first started. Um, my wife, we were trying to figure out how to do accounting, and we couldn't figure out the accounting software we wanted to use. And we had some problems. We start one, we pay for it, and it wouldn't work. It had glitches. So my wife actually used Excel to create her own accounting software when we first started. I was the one that was going out to the cell to wherever and handing out flyers. I had packs and packs of flyers, and I just go to houses and businesses and just hand out flyers of, hey, here's what we do. Let's do business together. And so you just have to sometimes just say, this is what I'm doing today, and go for it, and not hold yourself back, not think about the negatives, think about the positives. Instead of thinking of what if this bad thing happens, think about, well, what if I meet that guy today, or that person today, that business owner today that has 50 sites. And so I go from no clients to 50 individual sites today. So that's where you have to think about it. You can't think about the negatives, and so yeah, when you're talking about the emotions, it's just a roller coaster. It's that hot cold feeling. You're back and forth, and you're like, I don't know what to do today or how to think. And well, but let's move forward. Always move forward. So
I love that. I always like to, especially on a long enough journey like this, over 20 plus years. When you reflect back, what are a couple, think of just a couple examples. I'm sure there might have been many, but a couple examples where you've had a hurdle or a roadblock, or call it a challenge, whatever it is, in business or in your growth as a business owner, that really stand out to you, hurdle or something that you encountered and then had to overcome? Um, any main ones that stand out to you that you can share with us?
So I would say the largest one is the 2008 crash.
Mm.
Um, Overnight, we were told we had over $2 million in contracts and work. And all of a sudden being told, we're not giving you those contracts. We're not giving anybody those contracts, or we're going back out to bid, and they're getting rebid at half the price that we were being guaranteed, because people needed jobs, people needed work. And so some of those jobs, and during that same time, the Texas legislature had changed the law. So we had received what's called letters of intent from GCs.
Mm.
And in 2000, at the end of 2007, state of Texas had changed the law to say that those were not valid contracts, that they could renege on them. Whereas before that, they were pieces of paper and we would start working based off of that. And so I failed to see that law. And so we're starting work in 2008 based on these contracts that we're having coming up in 2009, and had started work, had started process, had started ordering product. And so we're sitting on $300,000 worth of product that we couldn't sell. We were sitting on contracts that were worth $2 million, but we couldn't collect on them because they weren't fully signed off contracts. They were just letters of intent. And so, and not only that, we had general contractors going out of business left and right that left us holding $175,000 in lost income. And this is the final money. This is the profit on these jobs and payroll, some of the payroll on these jobs, that they went out of business. And well, it all goes through these court systems, and people are getting pennies on the dollar. And when I say pennies on the dollar, on some of those, we got 1 cent on every dollar, and some of them we got nothing on every dollar. And so when it was all said and done, we had $175,000 we had to write off, and people say, "Oh, you just wrote it off." Yeah, well, that money was allotted for payrolls. That money was allotted for paying bills. That money was allotted for things. And so that was a hard downturn in the economy that echoed through the last 10 years, the last 13 years, and has always been something on the back of our mind of, making sure that if there is a recession, it adjusted how we think about business and how we move forward to make sure that we don't hit those rough spots again.
So talk about that a little bit. I'm curious, when you go through such a challenging time like that in the economy and surviving it, um, what had to change for you personally as the owner? How do you look at business different today than you did prior to that?
I'm a little bit more cautious. I'm not as gung-ho of, let's just do it. I think about things a little bit more linearly, and making sure that the steps are followed. We have processes in place. We don't do a lot of work with GCs anymore, just because we've had a lot of problems over the years. And by the way, a lot of those GCs that I said that went out of business, they were opened up 6 months, a year later under a different name. So they were right back and trying to get us to come to do business with them. And it's like, hey, you stole us all this money. And they're like, well, that was the other company. So thinking about that as we move forward and how we protect ourselves, we are very particular about the payment processes, and a lot of clients, we require 50% up front, and that covers our product. So if they decide to back out, if there's a problem, we get paid for at least the product, so that we're not out of pocket. Because a lot of our business, we're buying, about half of our product on a cash basis. And so we're trying to protect ourselves from those hard dips, because if we have all of a sudden a whole bunch, say March 23rd of when COVID, all of a sudden all these businesses just said, all these construction, We had multiple construction sites going on at that time where they just said, nobody's allowed to work for the next who knows how long. And so we're sitting on a whole bunch of stuff, and I've got to figure out, well, I've got no more cash coming in. How am I going to pay my employees? So I had to figure all that stuff out. So, but luckily that 2008, 2009 issue had made it to where I had that reserve and I had that protection to make sure that we could make it, for a short time through that process. So
Those are some massive lessons. And if you're out there and you're watching this, go back, re-listen to this, because it's really important that those little things like half being paid up front, looking at how you can kind of close that cash gap to make sure that at least inventory is paid for, things like that in case something falls out. I mean, these are big lessons that are really important and powerful in the process of longevity in business. So I appreciate you sharing that. And really, for anyone that's watching this that has not experienced something like that, go listen to this again. It's really important. Um, very cool. So we talked a little bit about the journey. I want to talk a little bit more about, current and, um, where you're at today. And I always like to ask about we'll call it the keys to success. You're here 20 years later, still in business, by most people's measures, at least by my measure, you've been very successful, in business. So with that in mind, what are some of the things that, you attribute your success to, whether it's certain things that you do or people that you're around or systems that you've put in place, but just what would you say your current keys to success are?
I would say the first one is structure. The people that I have behind me, my wife, Heather, she's very supportive of what happens. And she also thinks about things in ways I don't think about things. So she will come to me and, we'll be trying to decide on something, hey, how we're going to move forward here. And we will weigh out the options, and she'll stay up with me in the middle of the night with a pad of paper, and we'll do a pros and cons list of what's the pros, what's the cons of this movement. That's one of the keys to success. The second key to success is when you're in business, you can't let the negative people be around you.
Mm.
And sometimes it's hard for people to hear when I tell people this, but if there's negative people in your life, you have to eliminate. And I hate to say it this way because I'm sure I'm going to get some flack for it, but you have to cut those people out of your life, no matter how much you think they're friends. If they're negative energy, negative thoughts, negative comments are going to weigh on you harder than anything. And I'm not talking about the people that want to say, hey, did you look at it from this way? Did you look at it from that way? People that want to make sure that you're doing the right path. I'm talking about the people that look and say, well, you won't make it, and you won't succeed, and this and that, or you just need to give the company up because you're not a business owner. You need to let those people go from your life so that you can move forward, and always think about tomorrow, today and tomorrow, not yesterday. Don't ever go back and second guess, well, I should have done this last month, or I should have done this 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I should have, could have, would a long time ago. I've gone through a lot of things, but move forward and know that it's not about yesterday, it's about today and tomorrow. If you can, what's the old saying, put one foot in front of the other. Only look forward. So
Love that.
and you have to look at today and tomorrow, but every once in a while you have to look up and look down the road. Well, where am I heading? Where is the desired place? And you have to make sure you keep your eyes on that, because when you lose track of where you're going way out in front of you, you kind of get lost and you kind of fumble around. And I've done that over the years. I've had times where all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I'm on the wrong path. I've lost track of where I'm going. And so I have to look down, and I've got to get my plan and say, this is the plan. So this is where we're moving, and go back to it.
Oh, it's fantastic. You You've hit so many important pieces there, and I'm a firm believer of the surround yourself with the right type of people, and that being more positive. We talk a lot about environment, and environment can either lift you up or it can pull you down, and that's oftentimes the people you surround yourself with. So,
Yes.
um, personally, very aligned with that thought pattern, and um, I appreciate that. So, when you look back at, I'm sure all the advice that anyone has ever either given you or at least tried to give you along your journey. Is there any piece of advice that stands out to you or is most memorable to you today that you often draw back upon?
I mean, go back to, I've had several people tell me about you've got to let people that are negative in your life go. And, but I will touch on two other things. One was one of my product manufacturers, Scott Schramm, with Continental Instruments. He once told me that nobody cares about your business as much as you do.
Hmm.
Your employees are not there. Your friends are not there. It's you. You're the one that cares the most about your business, and always remember that, and whatever it's worth. And another thing that he and several others have said is that family is family, except when it's business, because business is always business. And that sounds resonant because of some of the negative people I've had to cut them out of my life have been family, or people that I considered family, because when it came down to it, I had to decide between family or business. And business, for me, business matters to my family. I have me and my wife have 6 kids, and they are more important to me than anybody else. I will say my wife and my kids matter to me more than anyone else. So when it comes down to it, and the business is what pays their bills, is what gets them food on the table, is what gets them, what little luxuries they have. They don't get phones and all that. They don't get all that craziness, but hey, they get some tablets, and they have a TV, and they get to do their stuff. And so when it comes down to it, I will cut people out of my life if it means protecting my family and their interests. So
Powerful. Very, very powerful.
And it's
Well, John,
harsh to say that sometimes. A lot of people are like, well, that's just harsh. And it's like, yeah, but it's a reality. I mean, what
yeah,
matters to you the most? You have to decide that for yourself, and that has to be your goal.
yeah. Oh gosh, there was trying to remember where I heard it. I had heard something, a quote not that long ago, and it was, all the success, all the things that you want in life is just on the other side of difficult conversations or hard conversations. And, I think that goes hand in hand with, sometimes you have to be harsh. Sometimes you have to just cut people out because at the end of the day, it's your life and it's your business and the things that you want to have. And, you got to make decisions and sacrifices along the way.
And
So,
sometimes you have to have that difficult conversation with yourself. You got to sit in that private room and
yes.
say, well, self, what are we doing today?
Oh, isn't that true? That's, those are often the most difficult, hard conversations to get through. So you have
Absolutely.
to be willing to admit to have them. Uh, Definitely have seen a fair amount of that. Well, John, I want to be respectful of the time that we have here today. So I always like to end on one question, but before we jump into that, for those that want to learn more about TriStar Commercial, that want to connect with you, that want to continue to follow you, things like that, what's the best way to connect? What's the best way to get more information, to reach out if there's a business owner on here, or a property owner on here that's interested in some of the services that you all provide? Where can they go for more information?
So www.tristarcommercial.com is our website. We're also on Facebook. It's TriStar Commercial LLC, and then B11933, and that is our security license for the state of Texas, because we have to have that. If you do cameras, you do access control, you do security, you have to be licensed in the state of Texas. We're also on Twitter under TriStar Security. And we have a few other social media accounts. They can find us if they look up TriStar Security or TriStar Commercial Security. They will find us. They can also call us at the office, 512-733-0944. So
Beautiful. And I will make sure to put all of that, or as much of that as I can, into the description of the notes and things below. So
cool.
make sure you go check it out. At least go in, connect with John. I'll put your LinkedIn link in there as well.
Absolutely.
And go in and check out the website and learn a little bit more information. Highly encourage everyone who's watching to go do that. So, John, as we wrap up here today, what is most inspiring to you?
That is very, I've heard you ask this of a lot of people, and it's very hard because there's a few, but I'm gonna do two. One is that call from the client that says somebody tried to break in and your system helped prevent it. That is inspiring because it shows that my system, that what we did its job. And the second one is when I go home and my kids are there and they're like, Dad's home, yay. And they all come up and talk to me. They all try to talk to me at once about everything that happened in the day. And it's like, okay, we gotta break this up a little bit. So those are the two most inspiring things for me.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I don't have six kids, but I only have two. But I can feel the when you walk in and they just want to chat and all that fun stuff. So I can only imagine having six all at once.
It gets harder until you get to four, and then it gets easier because the older ones kind of help out with the younger ones, and it gets a lot easier because then they help with the house. And my second oldest, she cooks and helps with with food, and the oldest helps with school working and stuff, and helps keep the younger ones kind of entertained and stuff like that. So it works. And the third oldest also helps out with the entertainment and schooling and stuff like that. So it kind of helps out with this whole everyone helping each other out in the family. So
that is fantastic. John, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It's been a genuine pleasure getting to know you a little bit better and hear more about the business and your journey. And just being in business for 20 plus years is amazing. So congratulations with that. Thank you for being here. Bottom of my heart, it's been amazing.
absolutely. Thank you, Tanner.